So I was sort of struggling to find a topic to talk about today, and then to my absolute joy, I found this article that I'm gonna post in the description. But it was from London Film and Comic Con. That was, I think it was 2 weekends ago, and Mark Buckingham was there, and he was being asked questions, and it was Bleeding Cool who put up this article. At least I'm pretty sure it was Bleeding. Yeah, and he said that his number one priority right now is getting Miracleman finished. I imagine quite a few people probably don't know who Miracleman is, but he's got a very long history, especially with England. And being British, I'm always quite proud of that. But I love the Miracleman stories, or at least I love the ones that came out in the 70s that Marvel republished a few years ago. I've been looking for some of the original Michelangelo stories. But for people who don't know what Miracleman is, basically in England we used to reprint American comics in the 40s, 50s, and a company over here had the rights to the Captain Marvel comics, and I think it was in the 50s where they lost the rights and they needed something to fill the space, so they asked writer-artist Michelangelo to literally come up with something to fill the gap, and he came up with a character known as Marvel Man, who we now call Miracleman. And Miracleman he was a kid who could become Miracleman by shouting a word, Kimota, so you can kind of see the parallels with Billy Batson having to shout Shazam to become Captain Marvel. And he had a family as well. He had these other two kids who became young Marvel Man and Kid Marvel Man, or as we now know, young Miracleman and Kid Miracle. And there were stories that came out for a while, and then in the 70s, Warrior, which was a magazine here in England, which doesn't really exist anymore, hired Alan Moore. And this is pre-Watchmen Alan Moore, and this is at the same time he's about to start V for Vendetta, because V for Vendetta actually started publication in Warrior, despite the fact we now associate it with Vertigo and DC. It started publication there. And they gave him the characters of Miracleman, and they said, what can you do with this? And this is one of Moore's first instances of deconstructing heroes. So we pick up with Michael Moran. I keep putting a G in it. It's Michael Moran, who was the kid who used to become Miracleman. He's now in his, I would say, mid-30s. He doesn't remember ever becoming Miracleman. The world seems to have very much forgotten about him. And he's a little out of weight, he's got a wife, and he's a freelance journalist. And he goes to report on this incident where there's like a load of protesters talking about nuclear war and radiation. Bearing in mind, this is coming out very much at the same time as the Cold War was happening, and like the Thatcher administration, which was quite a poisonous time here in England from what I know of it. Unfortunately did not see it, although it's a very fascinating subject. And one day when he's trying to get out of this place because he's just kind of a riot starting, he sees the word atomic written on the back of like the window for a door, and because he's looking at the back of it, he reads it backwards and says Kimote. He doesn't know why he wants to say it, but he's looking at it, and in a burst of energy he becomes Miracleman, and he kind of regains quite a few of these memories, and he's flying through the air just going, I'm back, I'm Miracleman, and he kind of sorts out the stuff going on there during the riots, and he goes home to his wife Liz, but still in the Miracleman form, and he has to convince Liz that, look, I'm Miracleman and I'm your husband. And he kind of fills her in on the adventures that he used to have with Kid Miracleman and Young Miracleman, and all these adventures, and Liz is just like, well, why don't I remember any of this? He goes, I don't know. I don't know why I didn't remember it. And first off, this book is like the Alan Moore run on it, which I think Marvel collected in 3 books, because Marvel now own the rights to it, which in itself is a very fun and long story. These books are not for children. There is a lot of violence. There is not exactly graphic sex, but there is sex in it. And at the end of the second book, there is an incredibly graphic scene of Liz giving birth. So it's definitely not for children, but it's fascinating. I'm not saying that for kids to go and pick it up and read it. But we had this these 3 books, and the first one is very much Michael coming back to grips with the fact that I'm Miracleman, and he finds the kid who used to be Kid Miracleman, and that kid never swapped places back with Kid Miracleman. It's Kid Miracleman who still has the body and is gone insane. And they have this knockout fight. And Miracleman gets him to turn back into the kid he was. And he is just this scared, terrified kid who's been in the back of Kid Miracleman's head for about 30 years. Which is fascinating in itself and incredibly cruel to see what happens to him through the stories. But the first book is him coming to terms with being Miracleman. The second one is learning how he became Miracleman with the Zarathustra project. And the third one is the aftermath of a particular event that happens between them. And it kind of flashes between a future where Miracleman is considered the god of this utopia, and then it keeps flashing to what's happening to Michael now, and this brutal incident that does happen, and it's kind of heartbreaking in its way. But that was Alan Moore's run on the character. And then a little while later, Neil Gaiman took up the book with Mark Buckingham, which is why Mark Buckingham was talking about it, and they decided they were going to do 3 arcs: the Golden Age, the Silver Age, and the Dark Age. The Golden Age was published and printed, and of course it got reprinted by Marvel not long ago with the Alan Moore stuff. In fact, the last book of it, which I think was issue 6 or 16, I will get up and have a look in a minute. If not, I'll flash it up on screen. I met Mark Buckingham a year ago, and he was so kind enough to sign it, and we just spoke about it for a bit. And he didn't mention anything about the Silver Age, because at the time, we all assumed the Silver Age was coming out. They have complete plans for the Silver Age and the Dark Age, but neither of the stories were ever published. And Marvel announced when they got the rights that we're going to let them do the Silver Age, we're going to let them do the Dark Age. And I have this postcard that I've still got. I'm actually looking at it now. It says copyright 2016 Marvel. Mark Buckingham and Neil Gaiman return in the Silver Age, number 1 and 2, on sale March. It's now August 2017, and as far as we were aware, the books were cancelled. And Golden Age was kind of interesting. It's this future where it's been years since the incident. Miracleman is still kind of considered a god, but they're little vignette stories with people in this world and some of the other characters, which when I first read it, I wasn't a big fan of it. I don't know why. And it was also the first time I was reading Neil Gaiman as well. I didn't like it at first, and then I went back and went, actually, yes, I do enjoy this. And there's a bit at the end where it's like, oh, that's interesting. And you can tell that's kind of the setup for the Silver Age. And then Marvel kept pushing the Silver Age back, and then it was just no talk of it at all. So when Mark Buckingham brings up the fact that, yeah, I'm just putting all of my attention on Miracleman now, and this was only a couple weekends ago, that is an amazing sign. And he says that both he and Neil Gaiman had children during this time, so they've had other things to focus on, plus other projects. But it's absolutely wonderful that we might actually be getting the Silver Age back, and I'm fascinated to see what this is going to be. Because, as I said, the Golden Age was kind of little vignettes, and then it sort of ends with Miracleman and Miracle Woman, who's another aspect of the story, by the body of young Miracleman, who we only hear about through the other stories. But I just think this is a wonderful piece of news. I don't think it's going to get a lot of attention because it's... Well, Miracleman isn't exactly a big name, so it's not going to get a lot of attention. But this update was this morning at 5 a.m. English time. So this story's only 12 hours old. And I can't actually see anyone talking about it, but I turned into a child after reading this. It's like, yes, we're getting more Miracleman. I love it. And I did write some articles about 2 years ago about the history of Miracleman's just as a character, briefly. But I might rewrite them or do them as videos. I mean, I know I do these kind of more as a podcast, but I'm completely willing to do a video on the history of Miracleman and his publication history, because there is a great book called Oh, I was just looking at it. Where is it? Oh, Kimote, the Miracleman Companion, which actually has an introduction by Alex Ross and some great drawings by him in there. And that is out of print, and I managed to get a copy not long ago, and the history behind this character is fascinating to me, especially as someone who loves comic book history as well as the history of comic books. And not to mention the fact that this character is British, and that always takes me by surprise. When I think superheroes, I think American, obviously, because Superman and Batman and Spider-Man, they're all American. Surprisingly, I don't even think of Captain Britain when I think of British superheroes. So I love this character, and I'm so glad to hear that he's coming back. So, yeah, have any of you heard of Miracleman before? Are you looking forward to this? Let me know, because I love talking about this stuff, and it'd be great to start a discussion. I have a link to the article I'm referring to in the description, as well as a link to my website and a Patreon link. We decided to go for a Patreon link because we're spineless. So yes, Miracleman, go read the books. And someday I will get into the reason why Alan Moore is credited as the original author. And nothing more.